And I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm an idiot. The one thing I forgot to do and I meant to do before I came was actually...
lube up.
Yes. If you enjoy the show, tell your friends. If you don't enjoy the show, then tell us what you think we're doing wrong. And we'll either tell you to go fuck yourself or we'll try to
probably
make
that.
changes.
We'll just probably say that.
Yeah, most likely. There's buttons and there's knobs.
Oh, he loves buttons.
It's all kinds of crazy shit. You got to play with them.
You got massive diarrhea. This is terrible.
Yeah. Yes. I wouldn't know. I've never actually gotten out of the Shire. There are two idiots, essentially. They're two morons that kinda are the R2D2 C3PO characters that are not like the main characters, but they kind of made it sound in the interviews like he was literally going to push a button, a hole was going to open, he was going to stick it in. I mean, Lando Calrissian was the coolest guy in the universe. I loved Lando Calrissian.
Yeah.
Reddit is the guy who goes out back and plays with the shit with a goddamn stick. He has strong feelings about interesting kids, and he wants them to want it. I want them to want it in the bogan. It definitely looks like at the end of episode 4 that damn thing is blown to smithereens.
But it doesn't blow up.
But it's because I would think that it's the same Death Star. I mean,
she was watching this movie because she's never seen it. She said to me, Darth Vader sure just does walk around a lot and bark orders at everybody. That's all he does is just walk around and bark orders. And then he walks around and his cape flows behind him.
Did you say that you find her lack of... shit, what the hell's the line?
What line?
God damn it. I think it was lack of faith. You know me as a kid. I could remember any line from any movie that I ever seen.
Yes.
I just, at this time in my life, like my mind is just slowly going. I don't know if it's overload or what it is.
Well, they say that vigorous masturbation just kills brain cells, accelerates the...
That would be fine, but it wouldn't be me. I'm not too far away from being celibate. So you're just doing this because you are literally setting me up for Timmy to be bombarding me with useless knowledge. So
the name of
go
Vader...
screw yourself, you motherfucker. I've always wanted to know what the hell a Jawa looks like without the hood on. I wanted a sandcrawler, like really fucking bad. They had more or less like this weird remote controlled version of a sandcrawler. It was bigger, and it opened up. You could play with the action figures and everything else, but you could actually use the remote control to move the sandcrawler.
He doesn't have a synthesizer.
I don't care. Let's move on.
Let's move on. So
It'll come to me.
this is where Luke gets in his little desert racer. What's that thing called?
Speeder. It's
Speeder,
a land
yeah.
speeder.
The land speeder. And then him and C-3PO track down R2-D2. But they're also being, at the same time, they're being tracked down by the woolly mammoth people.
It's not woolly mammoth people. They're Tusken Raiders.
Tusken Raiders.
They did ride on a thing that looked like a woolly mammoth.
Bantha. They're called a bantha.
Banthas.
Yes.
Right. Now, the cool thing was that in the talkover, they talked about how they made the bantha, the original bantha that was used, because there was no good way of, you didn't have CGI. So if you wanted them to be riding on the bantha, you actually had to create it. So they took an elephant and dressed the elephant up.
That's pretty wild.
So it was pretty cool.
It looked like Mad Max. Those the sand guys. What are they called? The
Tusken Raiders.
They look like straight out of Mad Max.
Yeah. Now the one thing I did find interesting in the commentary was George Lucas never acknowledges any kind of he doesn't acknowledge any kind of impact that his movies had. So, for instance, the Tusken Raider scene where he knocks down Luke and he's standing over top of him and he shakes the staff over top of him twice.
Then takes the hubcaps off the car.
Right. That scene is one of those scenes that has been reused over and over and over again. Like almost, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it in kids' cartoons because it happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting how Lucas doesn't even acknowledge that these kind of things that
had an influence
that had a big influence on culture. He doesn't seem to acknowledge that when he talks about it, which I find very odd. Mm-hmm. I would think that if I were the guy, I would at least acknowledge, hey, yeah, this scene right here, this happened, and it happened to be one of those scenes that that's reused over and over and over and over again. But anyway,
he's too busy counting his money.
Yeah, he's too busy.
So
$6 billion.
So they're getting Luke's getting his ass whooped. And then a clan member jumps out and scares the mammoth people off. But it's not really a clan member. Takes off the hood, and it's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Who shows
you mean
more
old Ben Kenobi?
Old Ben Kenobi, who shows more concern for R2-D2 than Luke.
Yes, he does seem to.
Yes. And Luke wakes up and knows it's Ben Kenobi. And Ben Kenobi is played by Alec Guinness, who referred to Star Wars as fairy tale rubbish.
Yeah, but you know what? At the same time, when he did this movie initially, he wanted to be involved. Mm-hmm. And he also seemed to be very pissed off that they decided to kill him off at the end.
Yeah, I referenced that later.
Oh, okay. But anyway.
But he negotiated the best deal, the main cast.
Of course he did. He was pretty much the only person on the cast.
Yeah,
that had him and
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing were the only two that had any kind of real careers.
Yeah. You realize how intelligent we sound? Like we were barely born. Well, I wasn't born yet, and you were only like 2. We were picking boogers.
Yeah.
And we knew all these old actors. That's the dedication that we put in this show.
It's just obsession.
Obsession.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen tons of Peter. I actually find movies with Peter Cushing in it just to watch him.
There's other shows that are obsessed over other people as well.
Okay.
The podcast. Anyway, the amount that came to $3.3 million back then. That's what Alec Guinness received.
Pretty good.
Estimates have him making over $60 million over the years from this deal.
All right.
Not bad. Not bad. Okay. Anyway, so old Ben starts recounting the days of the Jedi Knights.
You have where the Banthers were dressed up elephants. But go ahead.
It's okay. Former peacekeepers of the Galactic Republic who derived their power from an energy field called the Bogus. What's it called? The Bogan?
The Bogan, baby.
The Bogan. The Force. Until they were all wiped out by the Empire. Contrary to what his uncle told him, Luke's uncle told him, Luke learns that his father fought along Obi-Wan as a Jedi Knight until Vader, a former pupil of Obi-Wan's, turned to the dark side of the Force and murdered him. Obi-Wan presents Luke with his father's old weapon. His mother's... I forgot I wrote that in there.
Oh, Jesus, okay. I was wondering what the hell was going on, dude. Like, I'm like listening. I wasn't reading along. Anyway, yeah. So, of course, the first thing he does, I think Timmy pointed out, the first thing he does is look directly into the end of the lightsaber. The first goddamn thing he does. It's wonderful.
I'm sorry. I totally forgot I wrote that.
I just like the fact that you read it and didn't realize what you were reading until you read it. That's the best part. So anyway, he rambles on about the Jedi Knights, talks about the Force. You put in here that Carrie Fisher spent the 2 days shooting the hologram scene, which I talked about earlier. They played out the whole scene that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole holograph scene where
right.
Says Obi-Wan.
That's her speech, not mine.
Yeah, that whole exactly. And which she begs him to take to the Death Star plans to her home planet of Alderaan and give them to her father for analysis.
Alderaan.
Whatever the fuck it's called. And that's when Obi-Wan invites Luke to accompany him to Alderaan.
Alderaan.
And learn the ways of the Force in Alderaan.
Alderaan.
And then Luke declines like a weenie. How am I ever going to explain this? Then we switch back to the Death Star, where they're being assembled like the Knights of the Round Table.
Right.
In that big conference room.
Yeah. They're basically...
You know they're evil right there when there's a huge conference table. When there's a...
The bigger the table, the more evil they are. So you have Tarkin, played by Peter Cushing, who's kind of like the guy in charge.
Yeah, he's kind of the junior villain.
And Vader is standing behind him, and that, of course, is where the scene comes in, where he's like, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah,
and then starts choking him with his... He just takes his two fingers, and he's like literally choking the guy to death.
Exactly, and he ends up falling. No, he doesn't fall. That's later, right? That's when Vader kills somebody else later.
Oh, yeah, later on.
Then Vader walks off, as Mika says. Vader likes to walk.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Then
he's pissed, and he takes off.
Then we switch back to Obi and Luke in the Sand Racer. They find the Sand People caravan, the Jawas.
Yeah, the Sand Crawler, and all the Jawas have been shot, and he basically knows that it was the Empire, that it was blasters, and the Empire must have been involved. So then he's like, shit, I got to get home. Yeah. He runs back, and Owen and Hermes are already dead. I can't remember her name.
I love this because Luke walks up, and this looks straight out like Army of Darkness. You see, like Owen's like scorched.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's get the hell out of here. He's Luke's. The people he grew up with, he looks over and sees like char-grilled Owen doing like a skeleton push.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty funny.
Awesome. I actually broke out laughing when I just immediately went to Army of Darkness. They ended up throwing in there. And then we go back to the Death Star where, and that's when doesn't Luke change his mind? He's like, I'm going to go with you. To hell with this.
Well, they're all dead. There's nothing keeping them there.
He's saying, you know what?
So he's like, all right, I'm going to go with you.
I don't have to put your plow anymore.
So then back on the Death Star, they're interrogating
Leia
to find out where the rebel base is.
Yeah.
And she while that's going on, they're positioning the Death Star to blow up Alderaan. Mm-hmm. So basically, Tarkin gives them the last chance, and she's like, of course I should have guessed that Tarkin would be here holding your leash, Vader. Anyway, but she, Tarkin's like, if you don't tell me, I'm going to blow up the planet. And she says, I'm not going to tell you. And then she's like, okay, fine, I'll tell you it's here. And it's like some moon. And he's like, well, that's way too far away to make a big big statement. So I'm going to blow up Alderaan. And he fucking blows up Alderaan.
Blows it up, yeah.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, fuck you then. And they put her back in jail. And we flash back to Obi-Wan and Luke, who are now going into Mos Eisley.
Mos Eisley, yes, which is the cantina. That's one of the more famous scenes.
Yeah, the scene where they're, these are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, where the stormtroopers accost them, they're looking for them, and that's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's the first time you really kind of get a sense of, some of what the Force can do. Because you really don't know. They kind of, it's like this hokey religion type thing. And you have the scene with Vader choking the guy, but then you see Obi-Wan essentially mind trancing the fucking trooper. So you're like, okay, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You don't really get it 100%, but it's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool,
So, he tells them, move on. So they go in, and they're trying to find somebody to fly them to Alderaan.
Yeah. Which is this canteen, and there's this music playing. There's all types of different aliens in there.
Now, I will say that I think that the original music and the original scene was probably fine. I don't know that you had to enhance it with all these additional characters and all the big band and all that shit that they did in the...
You got the testicle plant, the band plan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was completely necessary, but it was fine. I don't have a complaint about it per se. If I have a complaint about anything, it would be during episode 6 when they have that they had that scene in Jabba's hut, in Jabba's pit, and they redid the singer and all that shit, and it's all CGI'd, and it looks kind of bad. I would have rather they just left it as the puppets because I thought the puppets looked better than the CGI did.
What they actually, I know Lucas asked they needed more aliens in the scene. Lucas actually asked makeup master Rick Baker to use off-the-shelf monster masks.
Right, which is why you had the devil, like right in the middle of everything, which made no sense.
They pronounced
like Lucifer,
pronounced them like it wasn't just like he's in the background. There was
no. They had to because they needed more diverse aliens. So they just kind of used whatever was available.
Yeah. The background voices in the canteen include various animal noises, people speaking African languages, and a group of the editors gathered in a room speaking gibberish after breathing in helium.
Yeah. Okay.
Good stuff. And that's where we see Chewie as well.
For the first time.
So they're brought to...
Laugh it up, furball.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Man Bear Pig harasses Luke, and Obi-Wan goes ahead and cuts his arm off. Slices it off. People stop for a second and then keep on going because it's whatever goes. It's like the Wild West in there.
Yeah, I don't. Have you ever seen Robot Chicken?
No.
Okay, Robot Chicken does that scene with the guy. He doesn't like you. I don't like you. They do that scene where they show the other guy and he's like, I didn't say that. What are you doing? Stop fucking around. It's hilarious, dude. If you ever get a chance to watch it, it's the Robot Chicken Star Wars special.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, dude. It's really funny.
So, let's see. Then they end up meeting Han Solo and the Wookiee. They negotiate a price...
That's far too much.
It's far too much.
Yeah. because Luke is a whiny bitch.
Yeah,
he really is a whiny,
he's a whiny
bitch
in this
through
movie, yeah.
the first half of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little less whiny towards the end.
Well, he's supposed to be a whiny little bitch.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
There is a scene at the end of the movie that always bothered me, but we'll get to it.
So they negotiate a price, and they're going to take the Millennium Falcon. But Greedo has plans.
Greedo shows up.
Greedo shows up. He looks like a walking plunger.
Yeah, I like Greedo. I like almost all of the bounty hunters.
Mm-hmm.
The only bounty hunter I was never really big on was probably IG-88, which is the robot, like the weird, skinny-looking robot.
Yes.
I was never a big fan of him. Mm-hmm. The rest of them I always kind of liked, and my favorite character of all time through Star Wars is Bosk.
Oh, really?
And he's a reptilian bounty hunter that's in Episode 5. The scene where they bring in all the bounty hunters to hunt down Han and Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Or Han and the princess, actually. And when the Millennium Falcon sits on the back of the ship and then drifts off when they let all the trash out. Uh-huh. Bosk is the reptile in the scene.
Oh, really?
With all the bounty hunters, he's the one.
Okay.
So he's always been my favorite. I have no idea why, but he always has been probably my favorite. Anyway,
so this is the whole scene where Greedo and Greedo is sent by Jabba the Hutt.
But he decides that he's going to get greedy and say, why don't you give me the money and I'll just act like I didn't see you. Mm-hmm. Which is why another reason why this scene doesn't make any sense is because, Han's just kind of like, everybody gets boarded and I'll pay him. And he, Jabba was demanding like 30% or something like that. He's just like, that's way too much. And just give me the money and I'll look the other way. Which is why I said it never made sense to me if Greedo the entire time is expecting him to get the money and give it to him. Why would he shoot him?
I don't know.
And, by the way, he's a bounty hunter. He's 2 feet away from his target.
Yeah.
And he shoots literally 3 feet away from anything remotely close to hitting Han.
Yeah.
It perplexes the mind.
The worst bounty hunter ever.
I don't, Greedo was always kind of a cool character too.
Yeah,
like everybody, when the movie came out, people liked it, liked the character. Just like Boba Fett, which was a weird character. If you really know the history of that character, the action figure actually existed long before the character existed. Because Boba Fett, who is in the re-release version of the movie, was not in the original version because he's in the cutscene with Jabba the Hutt.
Right, which is about to come up.
Right, but even so, he was put into that scene because when they originally filmed it, he wasn't in the scene anyway because he didn't exist. Because Boba Fett was a action figure way before he was ever in any movies.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. So
he has his own story in the universe, though.
He does now, right? But when he was originally released, it was kind of like one of those things like, this guy's coming. He's badass, and you want him. And everybody, you had to put in box tops and send them in to get him and everything else.
One of those special
and,
ones.
Because there was a couple of those characters. Eventually, I think in when Episode 6 was coming out, you could get the Vader after he was dead.
Oh, okay.
You could get that character.
Really?
It was a clear character. I think I actually have him. Ooh. It's not worth anything, but you'd send away to get that character too. You'd cut off the box tops and send it into Kendor, and that's how you would get it.
No shit.
So anyway,
G.I. Joe did that too. G.I. Joe.
yeah, G.I. Joe did that with a couple things.
Yeah.
A lot of things did it. Like, it was a way to get you to collect a bunch of their toys and send away.
So next, there you have various scenes that come up. You have the stormtroopers are ransacking the town, the city. The droids are hiding.
Yeah.
Because they're being tracked by this bounty hunter.
Right.
And then we had that scene with Han and Jabba that wasn't in the original.
Yeah, that wasn't in the original because there was no way that they could put it in the original because he always expected Jabba to be some kind of alien creature. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he had chosen it to be like a big
steaming pile.
Yeah, steaming pile of shit. But that's why because they didn't have a way to do it in the original movie, they left it out. Now, of course, the problems that I have with the scene, there's two major problems. The one problem, of course, is that because originally it was filmed, it was a big fat dude standing there. So when Han was talking to him, he's pointing at him. At one point in time, he walked around to the other side of the big fat guy because he could easily do that. Well, since you then have Jabba the Hutt, who is this squid monster, like worm monster thing, you couldn't do that. So you had that weird thing where Han steps up on his tail and walks around to the other side of him, which makes zero sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, why would he ever in a million years step on Jabba the Hutt and walk around like that? But then beyond that, if you watch very, very close, and even in the Blu-ray version, if you watch very close to his hands, when he's moving his hands around, when he's talking to Jabba, it goes into Jabba.
Oh, it does.
Jabba's, when he's fleshed out, his hand goes through Jabba because they couldn't.
I had to wash it afterwards.
It is what it was. I mean, it was. But those scenes always bothered me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. It was a weird. Even as I watched, it was jarring.
It is.
It was jarring.
Why would him stepping on his tail was really horrible. But then to follow that up with the whole, putting his hands through it. And really what it boils down to was the scene was not really necessary.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, you had already kind of put it out there that Jabba the Hutt, he owed Jabba Hutt money. And I think the only reason Lucas really put him in was to show that Jabba, when he was a little younger, was still more mobile and could get around more. As opposed to in episode 6 when he's pretty much lethargic and much fatter.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's,
lots of saturated fat.
Yeah, it's a really weird scene.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, the troopers are coming, and so they
get in the Millennium Falcon.
Jump in the Millennium Falcon. Well, they got back together with Luke, and Jabba has already taken off. Well, that's when the troopers show up, so they jump into the Millennium Falcon and they take off out of there.
Mm-hmm. And as they take off, they have star destroyers that are on their tail, but they are able to get out using the Millennium Falcon's ludicrous speed.
Right. Well, and that, of course, the warp speed that they use in that is one of those things where it's really fucking cool the first time you see that as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of those things that was amazing that you just never even would have thought, where like everything's kind of standing still and then like everything streaks past you because you're moving so quick, and it's really fucking cool. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I think they must have jumped off of them over to the Death Star, didn't they?
They did, just very briefly.
Yeah.
Very, very briefly. They jumped over to the Death Star, and that's where you see. Well, you already covered it, but that's when they blew up Alderaan.
Right. Okay.
That's when Leia watches.
And then of course they go right back to Millennium Falcon, and that's when he's like, "It sounds like a million voices just screamed out, and then were silenced." It's one of those scenes where it's just like, ew. There are plenty of lines in